So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of you that have joined so far, depending on where you are in the world. This webinar on the 21A release for Global HR will be starting in 3 minutes. So hello everyone, and a warm welcome to our first advisory series of 2021. These sessions focus on delivering and updating you on the new features and functionalities that are available as part of Oracle's quarterly release cycle. This is actually the second advisory session of this week. Yesterday we covered finance, and today it's all about global HR. My name is Chris Gomez, and I'm an account director here at Evasys, and today I am your host, where I'm also delighted to be joined by my colleague, Purva Sharma, who will be the speaker and covering all of the 21A global HR topics. Purva works in our ERP Centre of Excellence team, and will be taking us through, as I said, the global HR updates in 21A. And Purva has over 5 years' experience of working across the Oracle HCM modules, such as Core HR, Benefits and Absence. And supporting us today will be Brian Patel, who is on hand to answer questions throughout the webinar. And Brian himself has been with Evasys for over 10 years now, working within the Centre of Excellence and carrying out various roles, but predominantly leading the HCM managed services team in the US. We'll be taking us through the hot topics and everything you need to know about the main features of this release. This time we've actually extended the advisory sessions, giving us 90 minutes to allow for greater time to cover more of the features, as well as to allow for more time at the end for questions. However, as always, we will make an extended PowerPoint available to you at the end of the session that will cover off each of the features and any features that potentially we won't cover today as part of this. So by means of an agenda, we'd like to cover 4 main areas with you today. Firstly, I will talk a little bit about our approach to Oracle updates before handing over to Purva, who will take us through the analysis of the latest release, providing an insight into the new available features, as well as highlighting things to consider when deploying them. This will also cover known issues that need to be considered. And there is a lot to cover today, so Purva will likely be talking to us for about an hour around all of those features in the latest release. And after her session, I'd like to spend a bit of time talking to you about the role that innovative technologies plays in supporting your Oracle investment. And today's focus will be on robotic process automation and how it can support things like regression testing, as well as automating business processes. We will leave some time at the end to cover questions, but please do ask any questions throughout the webinar in a chat option that you have. Brian is on hand to manage answering these for you. Some of the questions may be left until the Q&A session at the end, particularly for questions that we feel there's relevance to have a bit of a discussion around them. So please don't worry if you don't see an answer to your question straight away. So let's take you into the approach and how we approach the releases. Now, this slide that I'm about to present to you may be familiar to some of you that have joined previous sessions, but I am going to run through this slide again to serve as a reminder for you, as well as to benefit many of our new attendees that are joining us today. So when we talk about an update, there are generally 4 categories of events that we must consider prior to deployment. Firstly, we need to analyze and consider each of the options that are available to be rolled out and the impact that they have on user experience and productivity, i.e., do we need it? Secondly, we have to plan how we deploy the updates by carrying out some sort of impact analysis. Then we test to ensure that there are no issues as part of rolling these out. And during my session later, I hope to provide some insight in how we can help with that phase. But I'm sure you'll all agree that it's the most intensive and time-consuming phase. The 3 stages I've covered so far then put us in a position to launch the new version and new features. And so today's session looks to support phase 1 of this 4-step process, as well as step 3. So moving on to how we present the information. So we present this information regarding each feature in a summary slide. Okay. So as with the previous slide, some of you may be familiar with this, but as a reminder, each slide includes the name of the feature with a short description of the release to better inform you and give you a brief on what the feature is for. We include a business benefits section to help you understand how advantageous it may be to your organization with the outcomes it could give you. And then we include a high-level impact analysis on the right with 4 main areas. So firstly, impact level. So a low would mean that there's no large-scale impact, so regression testing may not be necessary. And obviously a high would be the complete opposite. Does the feature need to be enabled, or will it just appear post-upgrade? How about configuration? Well, we highlight this too as part of the feature summary. And clearly an update that needs configuration needs more planning time. And then we also include a quick win gauge, which considers the level of effort and time required to get this feature set up. So, brief introduction. I'm sure that everyone is keen to hear what to expect in 21A from an HCM perspective. So, can I hand over to you now to tell us what?
Thank you so much, Chris, for the brief introduction. Hello and welcome everyone to the 21A quarterly upgrade webinar for global human resources. So today we will be taking a look at the feature releases of 21A upgrade. As you can see here, we have put up a small analysis for reference that has been broken up into having 13 common HCM features that are common across all the HCM modules. So we would have a brief introduction to these features. And with respect to global HR, we have 34 features that are introduced as a part of 21A upgrade. Out of these, based on our impact analysis, we have 16 features that are enabled by default and are considered as quick wins. And we have 13 features that are opt-ins and are also considered to be a quick win. The others are grouped as the rest of the features, which does not necessarily mean that they're not beneficial. But the focus of this webinar would be to elaborate on the ones that require less consumption of time for configuration and also makes an impact in terms of efficiency. So starting with the quick wins that are defaulted with no configuration and are also an HCM common feature, the first one that we have is the visibility of objects that supports being rolled back. Now, we often find this a bit of a challenge to identify which data loader objects can be rolled back, and if they can be rolled back, then to what level. With this feature, you can view if the data object can be rolled back with the help of this flag that is available here. Not only this, if you drill down to the business object details page, then you can also view that to what level this rollback is supported. So for example, you can see here that the element entry has been taken as an example of the data load object, which can be rolled back, and it can be rolled back for newly created records only. Moving on to the next feature, that is the processed source files will now automatically be deleted from the Oracle Web Center content servers after they have been expired. So this includes the data loader files along with the ones that are present in your local desktop devices. The processed source files would be deleted after 30 days by default. The next feature that we have would be an extremely beneficial feature and is going to save us a lot of time. With 21A upgrade, we now have a new rollback button that is available on the spreadsheet toolbar. So the two things that you have to consider here is that this rollback button would be available on the spreadsheet toolbar for the objects that supports rolling back, and you can only roll back the data that has not been updated since the time it was first loaded. Along with that, you will see here that the maximum duration for the retention of the extended data sets that supports rolling back has also been reduced to 60 days. After this, the data sets will be deleted automatically as it would have been expired. And the last that we have for the HCM common feature is the enhanced rich text editor, which is used in goals to define success criteria. Now, as you can see here, with this enhanced rich text editor, you can have the count of words as well as the HTML characters. And if you are taking the content from Word or Google Docs, then it will maintain the structure of the content as you can see here. This feature basically supports new capabilities and gives a better user experience while adding the text in the editor. Coming on to the global HR features that are quick wins with default and no configuration. The first one is update contact relationship start dates when the hire date is changed. Now, this is an absolutely impactful feature. We often find ourselves in a situation where there is a need to change the hire date of the employee, which could be due to a manual error, or let's say if the employee is joining a bit late. Previously, we also had to change the relationship start date of the contacts. However, now with this update, this relationship start date would be updated automatically whenever the employee's hire date is changed. This is an extremely beneficial feature which makes sure that the employee's record as well as the contact's record are in sync. Second, we have is an improvised user experience for in-progress employment approval notifications, which means that whenever we have employment approvals that are in progress state, we can make use of banners and messages such that it will highlight if the transaction has been submitted for approval or not, and if it is in progress or not. This way, the initiators can track the details of the transactions that are in progress state. This feature is beneficial when it comes to tracking the transactions. Moving on, we have a security upgrade for the editing of transactions by the approvers. Currently, we see that the approvers have the ability to make edits to the employment process transaction from the BIP notification itself. From this upgrade onwards, we can restrict the ability based on the worker data access, such that if the privilege is missing for the approver, then they would not be allowed to make any edits. And the notification would also look something like this. You can see here that there is a message that says that you don't have the access to this worker's assignment info, and the edit button is also not available. This feature enhances the security and gives a better control on the employment transactions. Next is a checklist enhancement feature with a lower impact. This feature restricts the IP address that is displayed in the electronic signatures section to protect the confidentiality, as you can see here. This security is followed in responsive as well as the journey task pages. Next feature that we have is flexibility for approver to edit document records that are submitted for approval. Now, as the heading suggests, the approvers can now make changes to the document of record that is submitted for approval, instead of directly rejecting the documents due to any sort of data entry errors. This feature not only gives us the flexibility to the approver, but also saves us from going through the hassle of rejection, withdrawal, or duplications. The next feature is also a document of record enhancement feature. So from this upgrade onwards, the seeded document types cannot be deleted, even though there are no document of records that exists for that document type. As you can see here, the system will give an error whenever the user will try to delete the document type that is a seeded one. Along with this, one small yet very efficient update is that in case there are any leading or trailing spaces in the document type name, then those would also be removed automatically. We all have gone through issues with manual errors such as this, where there are leading or trailing spaces in the document type name. And with this small update, it gives us control over such errors. In addition to the previous document of record update, we also have an improved document type setup page. By improved, I mean is that the document type, the system document type is visible at the front on the top here. And along with that, the information is also bifurcated into various different tabs, such as document record, preferences, attachments, etc. So we seem to have a lot of document of record updates in 21A. Next is an update to the existing deep links for document of record and document delivery preferences. So with this upgrade, the return navigation of these deep links when accessed from different pages has been defined appropriately, so that if these deep links are accessed from me, the return button will navigate to the person info. If it is accessed from the My Team section, it will navigate to the My Team section itself. And if it is accessed from My Client groups, then it will navigate to the directory. This gives a clarity to the user accessing the document of records from different sections of the navigator based on their role in the organization. And the last quick point that we have on the document of record is the control in accessing them from OTBI reports. We have a new secured implemented view in document of records real-time subject area that is consistent for accessing the worker's document of record. The last quick win that we have for default configuration set to no is the easy access of conversion of time zone and geographic hierarchy fields. So this update basically makes the search for time zone and geography hierarchy a bit easier by matching the results that are entered in the search bar with the LOV on the location page. So as you can see here, you can enter a part of time zone detail and it will match the results with the list of starting with the quick wins with yes default configuration. We have one quick win that has made the configuration side of tasks a bit easier to include or exclude need help, contact us, and seniority date sections. So these two sections can now be directly controlled from the HCM Experience Design Studio under the reference info region, as you can see here. Using these two drop downs, you can control the visibility of these two sections. Before we move ahead, I would like to take a pause here and break the flow by taking a quick poll and get your opinion on one of the well-known feature that we had in 20D upgrade. So Chris, would you like to go ahead with the poll question?
Absolutely, Purva. So the poll that we'd like to take you, to ask your input on is have you found the assignment security feature that was enabled 20D useful? So very simple yes, no answer. So I'm just going to launch the poll now. So on the screens in front of you now, you should have the option to select a yes or a no. So I would ask, if you don't mind, all voting so that we can get a view as to what your thoughts were. And thank you everyone who's voted so far. Seems like we've got a clear winner, but I won't disclose just yet because there's always a chance for the other one to sneak in at the last minute and win. I'm just going to leave the poll open for a few more seconds to allow everyone the time to actually vote. 10 more seconds. Right. Okay, so I'm just closing the poll now, and I'm going to share the results with you all. So you can actually see that 63% of you actually found that feature useful, 37 not finding it useful. It'd be interesting to actually understand why some of you didn't find it particularly useful. But anyway, back over to you, Purva, for the next section in your analysis of the new features.
All right. So coming back to the 21A upgrade features, finally, we have quick wins that are the opt-in features. The first one is a very impactful and a beneficial feature that would save us from not only the hassle of doing the same transaction again and again, but also minimizes the possibility of coming across any manual errors. While performing local or global transfers, the HR or the admins can now move the future dated transactions, if they existed, to the new assignments having the new legal employer. This can be done using mass legal employer change flow and checking this checkbox, as you can see here, of copy future assignment. Similarly, the future terminations can also be moved to a new work relationships that are created as a part of global transfer. This is also controlled using mass legal employer change and checking this checkbox right here of move future termination from source to new work relationship, as you can see on the screen. Both of these features are highly impactful. The next feature is retainment of employment or person changes, even though there is a change in the effective date. By this, what I mean is that if a new assignment row is added between the two already updated assignment rows, then the changes that existed for the future assignment record will be retained, only if those employment and person changes are found to be valid. One important consideration here is that if the entered assignment information is not valid as of the newly changed date, then the retainment would not take place. Coming on to the next feature, request for more information from the BIP employment notification. With this upgrade, requesting for more information has become easier, as not only you can request the initiator or the approver for more information, but you can also ask any worker outside of the approval chain for more information from the BIP notification itself, as you can see here. With this request information button. Secondly, you can also request for more information to the initiator by sending an email as shown here, which will trigger a BIP notification to the initiator to provide more information. The attachments are accessible to the approvers in BIP notification as well as the email notifications. These attachments are the attachments that are added during the request for more information or while submitting that information. Now, as we all are aware that while accessing any page that is having an employee's information, the header is the first view that comes into notice to any user. Now, with this particular feature, it enhances just that, which means that we can now enable the worker identification information such as their business title, their person number, their assignment number, etc. The benefit, this basically benefits the HR to identify employees at a quick glance in the employment flow processes. So in this example, as you can see here, the assignment number has been enabled. The next quick win feature is to accurately store the attachments in document of records. We can now configure if the attachment that can either be an electronically signed document or a report is to be stored for the task performer or for the checklist assignee. So as you can see here, there is a field that says documents are for with a drop down of assignee and a performer. Now, this is a great feature to ensure that there is data consistency and proper access control. Next we have is control task assign notification for a task performer. This feature basically gives a control on sending the notification to the performer of a task in case there is a task that is assigned or reassigned to them. So you can see here that there is a checkbox under the performer section, which would help in reducing the number of notifications, email notifications that are triggered to the performer. As we are talking in the lines similar to the access control, this specific new checklist feature ensures that the task performer is unable to update or mark a task as complete directly from the task notification itself. Now, we have faced a situation where the task performer simply marks the task as complete without actually visiting the task. This can now be prevented by setting mark a task as not applicable to hide, as you can see the setting in this screenshot. This would also result in having only a single dismiss button available on the notification, and there would not be any edits available. The next feature that we have is for the classification of document types. The document types can now be classified in such a way that the corresponding document records are to be created at a person level or on the assignment level. There is a new field that is added at the setup of document type, as you can see here. which basically has two options, that is one at person level and other as assignment level. This feature comes in handy when the assignment level security is needed for document types. Another document record feature that is introduced in 21A upgrade is to be able to track the availability of the document of records using the publish date field, as you can see here. This publish date field will only be visible if the publish required is set to yes while you're configuring the document type. This is a very useful tracking feature. All right. So coming on to the next feature, the HR or the admin we have seen often faces questions from the end users while the end users are adding a new document records or entering any relevant information for specific document types. This usually results for the HR or the admins to spend some time in answering those questions or guiding those end users individually. With this feature, we can now add instructional attachments that can comprise of, let's say, frequently asked questions that are asked by the end users, or it can also provide any other necessary information with respect to very specific document types. So as you can see here, there is a section for attachments where you can attach that instructional attachment with on the specific document type. And once this is attached on the document type, just a second, I'll just quickly navigate to the previous slide. Yeah. So once this is attached on the document type, you can see here that to the end users, it will be visible something like this. So there'll be a section that says reference info, where the instructional attachment that you have attached on your document type would be visible, something like this. All right. The second last quick win opt-in feature that I would like to discuss is the improvisation of user search experience for the position list of values. The search, while adding a position, will now be significantly easier for the users as they can search using some middle words or part of words, referencing to various parameters such as the position code, the position name, job name, or department name. And similar to this particular feature, we have another feature that enhances the search for the department list of values. You can now search using the middle name or part of words referencing to parameters such as the department name, or location code. Both of these features enhances your search results, and it should be very helpful to the HR or to the admins when it comes to the day-to-day transactions. Chris, would you mind going over to the presentation where I can navigate to OTBI enhancements?
Of course.
All right, so discussing over the new OTBI enhancement features. The first that we have is the streamlining of reporting names to give a more meaningful attribute names across multiple HCM OTBI subject areas. There are also new attributes that are added to HR action and HR action reasons. And lastly, the managers would now be able to report vacancies that are specific to their assignment hierarchy if the assignment security feature is enabled, which would also improve the security on the vacancy real-time subject area. So it will give assignment level security on the OTBI side as well. Finally, moving on to replaced or removed features. There is an update that the change legal employer would be replaced with local and global transfers flow in 21C. There are key features that are available in local and global transfer flows as listed here. So the suggestion is to start using responsive local and global transfer flows that were introduced in 19A upgrade. So coming on to the known issues in 21A, we have one new issue that is added, which is that you would not be able to add a document record from Manage Person page in Documents tab for the document type that have minimum attachment setup configured. So if the users would try to add a document record for such a document type where there is a configuration or a minimum attachment requirement, then they would receive an error message. You can see the error message in the second point. One thing to note here is that this is working fine in case the document type does not have a minimum attachment requirement. And the workaround for this is to access the document of records from the quick action instead of Manage Person page in the Documents tab. All the other known issues remains similar to what we had in the previous 20D release. So you may want to refer this PPT and go through the workarounds that are mentioned. In the interest of time, I would not be taking you over these issues that were listed in 20D as they are repetitive in nature. So on that note, that's what I had for today on to talk about the Oracle 21A Global HR features. We have covered all the quick wins, the OTBI enhancement, replaced or removed features, as well as the known issues. Now I would like to hand it over to Chris to take this further. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Purva. So lots of features there that I'm sure our attendees are going to be making use of in this next release. So we've covered the approach and we've done very detailed analysis of the next release. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is leveraging technology. But just as a reminder, please do use the chat function to ask any questions as you're reflecting on some of the things that Purva was taking you through. I mean, from my perspective, I want to keep Brian as busy as possible in answering questions. So your help there would be very much appreciated. Okay, so leveraging technology. Let's look at how other technologies can help with not only facilitating the release cycle, but also how you can drive further success from your Oracle applications, and in this instance, from an HR perspective. So we've leveraged the latest technologies, Oracle technology in many cases, and created a series of packages across 3 distinct areas: RPA, analytics, and chatbot. With RPA, we look at how we can help our customers automate the regression testing that is carried out for each quarterly cycle to save time and provide focus on where it's required. We also look at how we can save time with automating business processes too. From an analytics perspective, our value-based analytics, which a number of our attendees today may already have, can be overlaid on the existing analytics that you have in place, and it provides key information across 4 areas. So firstly, we look at identifying processes that can be optimized or even automated. From a system adoption perspective, we can help identify areas and reasons for low adoption rates, for example, and in turn provide recommendations on changes to improve these. We also look at how data outputs, the requirements you have around those, or your teams have from the system, to provide greater visibility of that data. And then finally, we cover audit and compliance that look at regulations and segregation of duties, as well as ensuring the compliance with any internal SLAs you have or that may be in place. Another point to raise here is that data and analytics shared across the business can lead to much better outcomes. I'm sure we all know this, but data is often siloed into each business unit or department in an organization. And obviously, there is some data that needs to be kept within departments, particularly HR, but have a think about whether having a more holistic view of data from across the organisation would help you and your colleagues. Perhaps those non-Oracle solutions that you may have running within the business, and the data that you could actually, the value of that data that you could get out of using those systems. So we can talk to you about how Oracle Analytics Cloud and the wider range of technical solutions can help bring that data together. But not just that, Evosys can help in getting the data into Oracle Analytics, as well as how you can get the most out of the data as well. And then finally, chatbots, or digital assistants, as we may know them. So many of us are used to dealing with these solutions in our personal lives, particularly when we're looking at online retailers all the way through to utility providers. They can be frustrating, that's fair to say, but at the same time, it's fair to say that they've come a long way in the last few years in providing positive outcomes without the need of waiting endlessly on the phone or for customer services agents to pick up that phone. And we're seeing more and more how businesses want to use them internally too. And you may already have some of them deployed to deal with HR queries. Certainly, from our perspective, we've seen lots of customers embrace digital assistants in the HR world. But they can be extended to not only improve system adoption through improved user experience, they can help with reducing departmental overheads around answering customer and internal queries. Whilst HCM seems to be a popular area to deploy these for internal processes, they can be used in almost any department. So, have a think about whether in your organization, whether there would be any value in actually deploying some of these digital assistants. Do you feel that in the HCM world you have sufficient to keep the users and the system adoptions level high? For today, I do want to talk a little bit further about RPA and how it can help. But what we want to do is then cover analytics and chatbot in the next advisory sessions for 21 and B and C. But what I'd like to do is I'd just like to put it out to our attendees. What would you like to see next? So if we cover RPA today, would you for 21B prefer us to have a session on analytics or chatbot? So I'm just going to launch the poll now, and I'd ask if you could just give us a view as to what you'd like to see more of in the next session, if possible. I won't spend too long on this poll. I just want to get a bit of a gauge. So thank you very much for everyone who's voted so far. Just another 10 seconds. Great stuff. Okay. So I will share the results with you. So as with the finance session, most of you would rather have a look at analytics in a bit more detail in the next session. But don't worry, for those of you that do want to see what can be done with chatbots and digital assistants, there's two threads here. There's the 21C, we will talk a bit more about chatbots, but also if you do really want us to talk to you about how we can help in that area, please do reach out to us and we can have a separate session on that. So let's now just talk a bit about how RPA can help. So we can break down RPA into two main areas that could benefit you. So you've got regression testing as well as automating other business and transactional processes. So firstly, from a regression testing perspective, many of you on this webinar will be focused on HR. So I've included a table of the number of standard processes that we've automated test scripts for, broken down by the two modules. We've also included more processes that we are actually currently working on automating. It is important to note that clearly if you have non-standard processes here, we would need to adapt or develop specific automated testing scripts. So, you know, one of the standard processes is entering an employee into the system. If you do have specific processes around entering an employee, we would need to work with you to adapt those test scripts. But what I can say is that by running these processes alone, the Centre of Excellence team reported back a 20% saving on testing time as a result of using RPA between 20C and 20D. Now, this is an extremely conservative figure from my colleagues in the Centre of Excellence, and it forms a base minimum that we can achieve. We do have customers that have saved near 70% on testing time, but it's important for us to be realistic with you. And time saving will be exponential. So as you invest more time and energy into working with us to tailor the testing process up front, you'll obviously save more time as we go on. But nonetheless, where we did the work, that 20% could be passed back to customers, and we were able to then focus on the failed processes by reviewing and resolving any config issues, or if necessary, alerting Oracle to any software-related issues that needed to be fixed. The great thing about this isn't just about the time it saves us and our customers, it's also about the speed or the elapsed time in which the tests are done. So it ultimately gives us more time in that testing phase to make sure that you're ready for the new release. From a business process automation perspective, this is where I believe the larger savings can be realized. So we spoke earlier about our VBA solution, which can be used to help identify the business processes that are ideal candidates for automation. Once those processes have been identified, we would recommend investing time up front to standardize or even redesign those processes before you look to automate them. Forrester wrote an interesting paper last year talking about the importance of RPA in the modern world, and interestingly, how much of a role it's going to play in the post-pandemic world. And they included some golden rules for robotic process automation, and they said that it's vitally important to carry out the standardization process or standardization process rewrite step, even if it increases the initial costs. Because this is ultimately because that it will lead to a more sustainable automation with improved returns. And they also went on to say how important it is to have a well-documented process map. So automation is normally a fragment of a wider process that you may have. So you need to ensure that automation factors in dependencies if it's associated with that wider process. The other interesting point that the report made was that humans still find it more improved ways of getting a job done by using different tools or maybe even identifying shortcuts. That's why it's better to look at simplifying the processes up front before you actually look at automating those processes. And then when we have done those, what are the benefits of actually automating those business processes? Well, once you've automated a process, it's available 24/7. So if you've got a number of transactions that you need to enter, it can just run overnight, for example. Because of this, it makes RPA an efficient tool for getting work done. And linked to that, the other benefit is obviously speed at which things are completed. Not only can processes be carried out 4 to 5 times faster than humans, process automation doesn't have those distractions that we all experience from being interrupted by a phone call, or in this world, a Teams call or a Google Meet Me call, or someone popping over to your desk to ask a question. Again, given the current restrictions most of us are under, I would actually welcome being in an office where colleagues are interrupting me. That said, obviously there is a point there around speed, and there's also assurances over the level of accuracy. As long as the data up front is correct, give a robot a task and it will deliver it consistently all the time. And then the final point is focus. So many processes that we look to automate revolve around data entry. And if we take these processes away from employees, it allows them to focus on the value add activities, and that in turn increases employee engagement. So hopefully you found that useful. And if it's something that you'd like to explore or talk to me further on, please do contact us. I'm going to share some contact details at the end of this session, or reach out via your project manager, and we can then have a further discussion about or identify how we can see the benefits in your organization around RPA. Okay, so as we head towards the final stages, I just want to move the slides on, to bear with me. There is a closing note, but just before I move on to the closing note, I just wanted to bring Brian into the webinar now to just ask him if there are any questions that remain unanswered that he'd like us to maybe discuss. I think Brian is having a few technical details. I'm just going to have a look at the questions myself to see if there are any that need to be discussed and answered. There doesn't appear to be any questions outstanding. So what I'm going to do whilst we wait for Brian to deal with these slight technical issues, I'm actually going to move on to the closing notes, and then I'll give us a bit of time to just come back and answer any outstanding questions. So if you could use the next 5 minutes to just reflect on what you've heard today, be it questions to myself or based on some of the information that Paul has given us, please do feel free to ask those questions. But in terms of a closing note, what will happen next? So in terms of the presentation, the session recording, and the test scripts, we will provide you with a link to each one of those things, and included in that is a feedback form. These sessions are for our customers, and for you to benefit from actually getting valuable information up front prior to the actual releases being made available to you. We always value feedback, good or bad. We want to improve where we can. So please do take some time, if you can, to fill in that feedback form and hand it back to us so that we can actually then shape and change the way we handle these webinars. One of the things that we've actively done is we extended the webinars, but based on feedback from the last sessions, that it felt a bit rushed at the end around asking questions. Please do speak to your project manager or send us an email to our generic mailbox, business@evasysglobal.com, if you've got any questions, or if you do want to speak to us about any additional services that you may need from us around the quarterly updates, or if you want to learn a bit more about some of those technology solutions that I've covered off today. On the right hand side there, you will see that there are more sessions. So this is the second session of 7. Yesterday we covered the finance advisory session. If you do have colleagues that weren't able to attend, please do get them to contact us. There is a recording available that they can listen back to. Likewise, this particular recording will be made available to you and your colleagues. We do have a session tomorrow on talent, one on the 22nd around workforce management, and then next week we have a session on supply chain. We then have a specific session around HR help desk and Oracle recruiting, and then the final session on the 27th is around global payroll. So for those of you that are interested in any of those sessions and you haven't registered yet, please do visit our website and register so that you can gain access to those webinars. So just coming back to questions now, Brian, are you able to speak now?
Yes, Chris, I am able to speak.
Excellent. So, no worries. Are there any questions that are still outstanding that you want us to cover?
I don't think so, because I have been answering all of the questions. We had one of the few good questions coming up on the documents of record, and yeah, so it was regarding the viewing of document of record being at assignment level or personal level, or is it assumed to be decided when it's created from scratch, the document of record? So that was one of the questions asked.
Okay. And were there any other questions, Brian, that may be worth that you may have answered, but maybe worth just running through so that the other attendees can actually benefit from those responses as well?
Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, so another good question was asked regarding the can approver can edit document via workflow, that all the chain of people from start of the person who started the workflow to the other in the chain of person can approvers can edit that document or not. So yeah, so that is also one of the good questions asked in the webinar.
Okay. Any others?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Apart from that, yeah, so there was one more suggestions that the assignment number, post number appearing on the employment page, that can be viewed at employee manager, or it's only viewable to HR. So on that also, it can be only viewable to HR only. But it would be more helpful if that can be viewable to at manager level as well. So that was also one of the question. That's it. Answering to the one of the question where is asked regarding that when they can register for the talent webinar. Yes, you can register for the talent webinar. It is still, link is still open. If you want, team can send it that too.
So yes, so if the easiest thing to suggest is if you visit our website, ebasisglobal.com, you should be able to actually register from there. But I will ask our marketing team to reach out to you and actually provide you with a link. So Brian, in the interval for where we've just been discussing some of those questions, have there been any other questions that have come through from our attendees? Any final questions?
No.
I see a question now. Yeah, I was going to say that there's a question here around tracking if a staff member has opened a DOR.
Yeah, so this needs to be checked. Means I think this needs to be checked from the Oracle side, that if whether a staff has opened a DOR or not, that needs to be checked. Means we will surely check with Oracle first on this one, or someone who is working on your project will ask them to check and get back to you on this, Martina, from that side.
Excellent. Okay, so if there are no other questions, we can bring this webinar to a close now, slightly earlier, so that you can all gain some time back. Oh, I think there is one more question, Brian, that's just come in.
Yeah. So can you turn off approver amending, as this would break segregation of duties and break the audit requirement? Yes, great. We can turn it off. We can allow approver not updating any of the information which has been sent for the approval.
Good stuff. So if you do think of any other questions that we may not have covered today, please please do reach out to us. If you do have a project manager, please speak to them, or if you want to just send us in an email, we'll have a look at that. So I will thank you all for attending. It's been a great session. Many people attended today. One of our largest sessions we've ever run. So thank you for that. And I look forward to seeing most of you on some of the other HCM specific sessions. And I wish you a very good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And thank you very much for joining us. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.